Hello and welcome. I'm Dr. Daniel Noorthoek, and this is the first episode of Beyond the Arches. With me, I have my admin team and experts in their field and their craft, and just wanted to welcome you to this podcast revolving around full arch dentistry, the why, the how, the lab, what the inner workings of this is, and kind of come in a more informal type fashion. So if you're just finding this, subscribe it. We're on lots of different social media sites and wherever you may find your podcast. So, without further ado, why don't we just kind of go around and kind of introduce everybody. I myself, Dr. Dan Noorthoek, I own and have been running Done in One now for 5 years, depending on the way that you look at the history, probably more. But I'm sure that will come out as episodes go on and as we delve through this journey and start unpackaging things. Nick, why don't you go ahead first and kind of introduce yourself?
Thank you, Dr. Noorthoek. My name is Nicholas Glick. I run the operations for Done in One. I have been with Dr. Noorthoek and the team since its inception in October of 2020. Proud to wear the DIO on my chest and hopefully give you guys some information on what the lab, how the process works, what all the background is, and just give some feedback from a young individual that loves this brand. Next, I'll kick it over to Lilia. She is at our Boca office and with our admin team.
Hi, my name is Lilia. Thank you, Nick. Like Nick said, I'm at our Boca office. I'm one of the treatment coordinators there. Love my job, love the patients we get to help, and I think I bring that in-office kind of take to everything, and really fun journey to be upon.
If you need a water,
I will ask
Whatever
you.
you need.
And if
Diet
you say
Coke.
no, I'll ask you when you leave the office. So I'm sure.
Financing links.
Yeah, whatever it takes, I'm here. So I love it.
Thanks, Lilia. My name's Robert. I've been with Done in One for 4 or 5 lifetimes.
Yeah, also since the inception. So
I think 4 or 5 lifetimes is
too long
appropriate.
after.
Yeah.
I've worn a few different hats over the years, but now I'm mainly focused on marketing and just kind of understanding the full arch industry and how we fit into it, how some of the other players out there fit into it, and just really how to get exposure for our brand and let people know what we're doing over here and how we're trying to help people out and how we're trying to do things a little bit differently and be a little more transparent and patient experience focused. And we think that's something that's missing in dentistry. People already don't enjoy going to the dentist, so there's already kind of this stigma.
Yeah. So
I feel like part of my job is letting people know that stigma does not apply here. We're doing things a little differently, and that's why I'm here. And Noorthoek has put something really special together here, and I'm proud to be a part of it with all you guys.
Yeah. To summarize, we've got vision, we've got execution, we have the patient message and sort of the sales from the inside, and then we've got sort of the outward messaging kind of represented here. And so the reason why you guys are on here is, while I'm technically officially the host and the ugly name on the artwork, we'll be kind of doing a variety of different things: patient interviews, talking to former patients, talking to prospective patients, answering some questions, and the goal here is to be as transparent as possible and really kind of go beyond and behind the arches, right? Like, talk about what really goes on. What is it like? What, maybe even get into cost a little bit. What's an implant? Why does an implant work? So there's a lot of stuff that we can unpack here, and the 4 of us have hours and hours of conversation, so why not have it in front of a camera on a mic to a little bit of an audience that may have or want to, or maybe they don't have the access to be able to get that information, right? Sure. Mm-hmm. There's only so much that you can get out in a consult. I may have something to go
searching
into
on the internet.
Yeah. searching on the internet, content-wise is pretty limited. It's usually going to be from a company's perspective, and is always going to have that slant. And granted, we're done-in-one employee. We've all got done-in-one on, so we'll have our own biases. But the goal is to really kind of be unbiased or explain why things roll the way that they do in this niche of dentistry, right? And kind of be a resource. Maybe you're listening to this podcast and you are never going to be a done-in-one patient. You just like listening to people talk. or maybe you've already had this done and you have a friend or whatever. This really isn't a marketing ploy. It's more just to kind of get some information out in mass and be able, sort of a reference. One of the hardest parts about my job is that I've had 6 and 7 years to download as much as I can to you guys, and so you really know where we're coming from.
Sure.
Hundreds and thousands of meetings and phone calls and such. But when it's a patient, the person who's actually getting the work done, it's 20, 30 minutes, at best an hour, and so it's really hard to convey the risks and rewards and all the things that go on. And I think we have some good ideas to do something pretty fun too. I'm sure we'll have some fun patients here. About 90%, 85% of our patient base comes from out of state. So we get some quirky, goofy ones, and we get some people from Alaska and Hawaii. So I think our demographic will be fun to kind of play around with as well. Maybe do some off-site podcasting and different things. So the direction will always be full arch, but I think that kind of in our demographic, we're hoping to enrich and kind of demonstrate it or direct it towards other professionals, patients, prospective patients, prior patients, just kind of anyone that's sort of involved in this world. And, this is going to be our opinions, right? You and I, and we all kind of work together through our opinions and formulate our ideas and kind of work towards a goal. But I think that, it's important to keep in mind that this is really just our opinion. It could be different than your own dentist at home, or if you are a dental professional and you don't agree, that's fine. That's the way that things work. We're not here to shove anything down anyone's throat.
Yeah, I think that segues well into kind of the resource aspect of what this podcast could be. So, we're an open book. We want people to reach out to us. We want people to ask us questions. We want to have you on the podcast. We want this to be very much, human and find out what are the questions out there that people want to know. What are the things you've been told that you want to get confirmation on? This is a really good resource for anybody looking into really, honestly, any kind of dentistry.
Yeah.
A dental podcast, who's that going to appeal to? I feel like you'd be surprised.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of people out there that are looking for answers and wanting to have these types of discussions. So, why not have a podcast that caters to that and let people do that?
We all have teeth, and this will naturally devolve or go into other areas of dentistry, like what's a crown and what's a root canal and things,
Sure.
because it's part of the backstory of everybody and the reason why we get to this point and when to make those decisions and how people make those decisions, right? We're very forthcoming in the fact that we don't push anything down anyone's throat. And so this is a decision that the patient has to make for themselves, and we're here to kind of guide and mentor them into making the best choice. And that sometimes that means making a call on good tooth or bad root canal or whatnot. So I'm sure it will devolve into that as well.
Sure.
And I think that one thing that's fun and a little bit underrated is by having a lab and having Nick have such a background in sort of running the lab, I'm sure we'll do some exposés on how we end up doing the prototypes, how we glaze those and get those prepared, why we can kind of go through multiple versions, really why we go through multiple versions, right?
Sure.
There's a lot of different ways to skin this cat, and it's going to be really fun because we get to kind of go through kind of the good, bad, and the ugly and go all the way through it.
Yeah, absolutely. And, Robert touched on it, and so did you, Dr. Noorthoek. We're all humans, and we all have set of teeth, and we probably all have experienced some type of either losing baby teeth, obviously that, but also having pain on, going through the wisdom tooth process, or having a single tooth start to decay. So this is going to be a really good platform to kind of venture out and see, does this fit to us, or kind of get a good insight on some dental professionals. Dr. Noorthoek, that all being said, why don't you give us a little background on how many cases you've done with Dun & Warren, some cases prior to that, and why patients should listen to you and to the Dun & Warren team?
Yeah. So, I guess that's actually a pretty good thing. So I'll go through kind of my sort of story, and then I'll have kind of you guys go through your sort of story, and we'll kind of wrap it up this first episode with kind of how Dun & Warren came to be on a podcast in Meisner Park in Boca Raton.
Sure.
So right out of school, I didn't have a job. I knew I wanted to do something with a lot of implants. And you guys have all heard this story, I don't know, 4,600 times. So just pretend like it's interesting and new. Yeah. So I had heard about a guy who was doing a lot of implants, and didn't talk to him a lot, but he gave me a phone call about a week after I graduated. Didn't have a job lined up or anything. It was a little bit just kind of picking things out. And there's a lot of different ways that you can practice dentistry, right? You can go buy your own practice. There's a lot of different things. So when he called, and I missed his call initially, I knew exactly what he was talking about. And he was talking about a job that was sort of like the job of dreams as you're coming out of school. And it was sort of just luck. And it was up in Jacksonville. I had already lived down here in South Florida. And so for about 7 or 8 years, I commuted back and forth, 4 hours there, and would stay there for a couple of nights and come back. And when I first started working there, we did a lot of different types of procedures, almost anything that I was trained to do. But what I fell in love with was sort of that change in the smile, right? The change in the patient's life, and sort of that quick reward, and being able to kind of focus on one person. And so we kind of went through a lot of different iterations, and what we'll end up talking about in a lot of different podcasts is that it's very time consuming, and it can be very like, we kind of always would talk about it like the dark storm cloud that comes after you get the teeth glued together and you get them in the mouth and you get the video for Instagram. What happens after that, or what did happen after that, could be a very frustrating process. And so to my old partner's benefit, he was on that side and was, instead of just saying, you know what, we're not going to do these, I don't like rain clouds in my office, he switched up the game, and we started going down a path of what does it look like to get finished a little bit quicker and a little bit more straightforward. So long story short, through a lot of different moves and a lot of different businesses and models, we ended up down here in South Florida in 2020. Dun & Warren existed prior to that. We were a lab service to dentists. We also had run about 7 or 8 offices prior to COVID as our own. We ran the marketing and such, but we decided to move it down here, and I kind of took it over fully on when we did that. The funny part of the story with you guys is we did that sort of from the van when we would go back and forth to Jacksonville, and so a lot of the strategies and a lot of the mindset was really set in those hours and hours of time. And
yeah,
if you saw where we were making decisions and coming up with ideas, it was pretty funny. We actually, when we first started, remember we would joke that if we were going to have a meeting, it couldn't be in a room because we wouldn't be able to make any decisions. Like, we'd need to go out in the car and to decide how the banter and the flow worked.
Yeah, and just for listeners, this was a 4-hour drive, 3 days a week. We would leave at 3 a.m.?
Yeah, about 3:30, 4 a.m. and straight through. There was one
right
stop.
into surgery.
We had to always stop at the same gas station.
Yeah,
because that was always a nice little.
Yeah,
you pick me up for
Sure.
the continuing the conversations on the way to Jacksonville.
Good tradition.
Yes.
Yeah, and then after I was done with the day of work, we would just war room. We would stay in the same hotel and war room, and kind of really develop the basis of what Dun & Warren is. And to go back to your question, now this is all I do. I only work in full arch, and now specifically I only do the full arch surgery anymore. I've done every little aspect along my journey, but from 2013 to now, I've done around 6,000 arches. So, and in terms of number of implants, I've probably done 30 to 45,000, somewhere in there. I've pretty much averaged right around 5,000, just less now that I'm only doing the surgery, but we've done about 6,000. And the way I usually break it down in a consult is the first 1,000 or 1,500 of the cases I did, we were gluing stuff together. We did it sort of the old traditional way, so we can speak on that very handedly and very professionally. And then sort of that last like 3,000 or 4,000, 5,000 cases that we've done it this way. And since going out on our own in 2020, I think we've had probably 1,500 arches or so of that sort of mix. And so things have kind of ebbed and flowed, but we've had a really good journey.
Yeah. So before we cut away from that, just a question I always like hearing the answer for is like, what have you seen full arch change from since you started this?
Whoa, that's a deep and long question to answer. When I first started doing this, it was new, and it was very much pitched as you're putting in your patient in their last final pit stop before death or before something really bad, right? And so the only thing that you could think of when you were doing it is, if this goes bad, I've been trained, this is done, right? And that was the mindset, even if you were doing these cases. And really what I've seen in the last 12 years, 13 years, whatever it's been, it's really been not that, right? If we can preserve the bone, if we can do the implants and keep it the way that we need to, as long as it was treated right with the right machinery and the right process, the right teeth, we can really kind of bounce around in the space of the bone that we have. We can find new spots. We can kind of get patients in a good position. In addition to that, this is a very predictable and pretty straightforward procedure. And so that is one of the myths that sort of has been dispelled over time.
Right.
The other thing is that it was the majority of your time, if you added up all the cases and all the time that it used to take to complete start to finish, it was probably 20 to 40 hours worth of pretty intense work for a patient, right? And that was me or whoever was doing the case, really tough, actually, like grinding and working. And so the focus wasn't the patient. The focus was
just a lot of time to be in the chair.
Yeah, it was on get it done, right? Like, hey, don't bother me. I'm working on something. And so now what's really, really rewarding being like at this point in the career and this point in the technology and such and putting together the protocol is 99% of it now is almost just patient interaction, right? I have the work for the surgery, but the actual fitting the teeth and getting them predictable is so much more patient-based. It's very, very rewarding. I sit in the back. I sit at the front desk all the time and kind of hang out. And when I listen to the patient interactions with the restorative dentist, it's very, very rewarding to have seen that change, because that's what should be the focus. That's what we all claim to be here for.
Right.
But to see it in action and see it really develop, and the other thing that's really cool, it's not this, we don't have team meetings and go, okay, guys, your patient interaction, Lilia, your patient interaction time was about 15 minutes per patient. We don't track that. We don't need to. We become friends because it can be focused on that rather than on the work itself. And so that's probably one of the biggest change. And that's only made possible by the technology that's come around and sort of everyone's proprietary mix they're going to feel like is the best, but our proprietary mix allows for that to be very straightforward and just happen in this nice organic sort of friendly way.
Nice. And before you kick it over to the three of us on kind of our background and joining Dun & Warren, for the listeners, let's give us a little bit of context and like a quick synopsis of what Dun & Warren is and also what full arch is, in case anybody's new to that terminology. Same as all on 4, all on X, a couple, probably 5 other different ways you can describe this as well.
I'm gonna let Robert Odom. You're like our in-house non-dentist hybrid historian.
Okay. Also encyclopedia.
Yeah.
Okay, that's a lot to live up to, but I'll give it a shot. So
we believe in you.
Done-in-One is a procedure that is based on an immediate load protocol. So that is, back in the day when this procedure was done, there were a couple different options, but they were all very lengthy, and you could bury implants and put somebody in removable dentures until the implants integrated, bring them back, do the uncovering, which I've heard is not pleasant.
Hide and go seek.
Yeah.
With blood and gums.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. And nobody's a fan of it. But nowadays we can, due to stuff that I'm sure you'll get into as a dentist because I am not, we're able to do a load within 2 weeks of placing the implants. So we don't have to leave people in removable dentures. A little bit
loading meaning that you can put the pressure on the teeth to actually give them teeth to chew with that are attached to the implants.
Screwed in teeth that do not come out. So very close to your natural teeth. And then there was a time, and you feel free to correct me if I'm wrong here. I'm not a historian, but this is from my experience. There was a time where you were only able to load a temporary prosthesis. So I think that was kind of the traditional way that this started, right?
Yeah, the way I describe it to patients is that in order to understand how the mechanics of this is, we'll talk about implant design and why we use implants and why other people use other ones. But if you look at the way an implant heals, the day it goes in, it's basically solid, right? It's just a screw in wood, if you will. Mm. And you've got a couple week window for that to go in. And if you look back at the way that we used to do these cases, it would take so long to get the good information to put the really good stuff in that your real only option was to sort of Jamie rig it or glue and tape it together on the day of. And so that's where the temporary prosthesis came in.
Yeah.
You would have to wait for that implant to finish sealing to the bone, if you will, for that 3-month period before you could then go back in and get good information.
Right.
It's kind of a tale of 2 expiring windows.
Right. And then conversion dentures was the thing, right?
Yep.
So those are a nightmare, right?
They can be. What you would do typically, and sort of, this is really just mostly kind of anyone that does this that doesn't have a procedure or their own real bona fide protocol. What they'll typically do is they'll get a denture. They'll cut the holes into that denture once the surgery is done, and then you reman and glue it together. And then you go through and back into your lab, and this is where that really hands-on grinding and working came in, is you had to cut that denture into sort of that horseshoe that you're typically used to seeing, and you'd have to polish it so the patient could wear it, and had to be glued well enough that there wasn't spit and saliva stuck in between. And so back in the day, it was really tough to get done. And when we say back in the day, and then also say that Joe Schmo in Indiana is doing it this way, it's totally fine to do it that way. There's really nothing wrong with doing it that way. That's not to speak down on them for doing it. That's them using the resources that they have, right? It's been a long grind to get to a point where we don't have to do that. So I don't hold it against anyone that they're doing temporaries. If I didn't have the lab and there was a EMP pulse that killed all of our 3D printers, we'd be out there grinding away and getting it done because it works just fine. It's just a lot clunkier and kind of takes that personality aspect out of it. Yeah. So and so a lot of verbiage came out of this when they were marketing and different things. So you had teeth in a day, you had all on 4. The sort of real dentistry way to call it is a hybrid, denture hybrid. But any way of fabricating something that's attaching teeth into the teeth at the same time is sort of kind of how we use all of those terms. And that's because this person, XYZ, for whatever reason, whatever medical background, whatever condition that their teeth were in, whatever the story may be, and there's a million of them, needed to replace their teeth or have them all taken out at one time, and then are replacing sort of that substructure with the screws and then we're attaching those teeth, be it temporary or permanent, in some way or fashion over top of them, so that gives them the appearance and the feeling and the self-confidence to feel like they have those teeth.
Sure. So I think once immediate load was established as a reliable protocol, then the question became, what do we load here? And I think traditionally it was an acrylic prosthesis. And then the question became, well, is that really necessary? Do we have to put somebody in a prosthesis that's prone to breakage and stains and just like nobody really likes, or would we be able to go to a more final prosthesis? And I think around the same time, new materials were coming out. I think nano ceramic is one that we started with, and didn't work out in the long run. And then zirconia became the way to go. So the question again was, are we able to immediately load this zirconia prosthesis without seeing a downside to that? And I think that question's been answered at this point.
100%.
Yeah, and through the Dun & Warren process, it's kind of unique comparatively to the older or more traditional way of going about this. Is if you went to a local dentist that doesn't have a protocol that Dr. Noorthoek described, you would most likely end up in a conversion denture, which would be teeth, and you'd look fine. However, you would be looking at a minimum of a 3 to 6 month kind of protocol. So you're going to be living in that conversion denture while you heal, and then eventually you'll be able to get back in, get scheduled, and go through a multiple step kind of conversion process of getting into a final restoration, whether that be a nanoceramic, acrylic, a zirconia, whatever that may be. With the Dun & Warren procedure, we've been able to kind of revolutionize that process, and this is 100% to Dr. Noorthoek's accorded, and just trials and tribulations, figuring out how this is going to work, and patients that were along with the journey of saying, yes, I'm here for this. Let's figure this out. I don't want to waste 6 months of my life. I want to get this over with because my teeth I'm in pain or I'm having issues. And we figured it out that we can, remove a person's teeth on day 1, put implants in. Day 2, put a set of try-ins in that are 3D fabricated, customized from our lab. Do that for 2, 3, 4 days. And then go ahead and make a final restoration in which we use a monolithic zirconia, which I'm sure we'll dive into later on. And a patient's completed through the entire journey within a 1 week period. So we have traditionally, started this process doing the 3 to 6 month, and patients agonized over it because they had to go back to work. They had to go back to wherever they lived. But now with the protocols that we have in Dun & Warren, we've been able to establish a predictable and reliable 1 week protocol for zirconias.
Yeah, and I think, and again, correct me if I'm wrong, I'm probably going to say that a lot.
Okay.
Just to be upfront. I think we've really noticed a byproduct of this is that putting somebody in a final zirconia prosthesis actually has unexpected benefits over a temporary prosthesis.
Oh, yeah. We'll get into all of that for sure.
Yeah.
And I tell patients this all the time. It's completely intentional, the timeline that we do in, right? And we'll get into the equipment that we use and why we do certain equipment and certain materials and such, but we could have a patient in a zirconia right away within that same day. No problem. That's not a problem. It's all the tech that we use and the protocols and the systems. It is intentionally a 5 or 7 day process because patients they're spending an entire car on this. They want to pick out what color it is. They want to pick out what their rims look like and what their tires are and whether or not they have leather interior. And so getting it faster at some point gives you no benefit, and taking a little bit longer gives you a benefit. And so we just found that sweet spot is that 5 to 7 days, which is why we have it that timeline.
Yeah, and I think from my perspective, being able to do these 3D printed prototypes and seeing what you're going to end up with in the mouth is a pretty important aspect of that, right? So we have software now where we can 3D scan somebody's face and we can, design a set of teeth and plop them in there, but like it's not there yet. It doesn't work. Like my brain doesn't really put those two things together. So I firmly believe that our protocol is really important, because people get to kind of test drive those teeth in the mouth and see if they feel right and see if they look right and make those adjustments if they don't, as opposed to, when Done in One started, it was a, first and final. This is your day after your surgery, you get this final, and that's what you're going to have. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but we just found a better way to really, like you said, get patients involved in the process. And I think anytime you can involve the customer to the extent that we do, that's a recipe for success.
Yeah. It was never a totally fulfilling thing when it was 40 grand, 24 hours, those are your teeth, have fun. Right. It was never that fulfilling. There is a patient base that does take that as well, and so you just accommodate depending on who the patient is.
Yeah.
But, this is a multifaceted, multifactorial, heavy, intensive workload type procedure. It can be done many different ways. And again, whether you see Done in One or not, it's going to be skewed Done in One's way. We all live, eat, sleep, and breathe Done in One. This is not meant to be an advertisement. There's no talking down to other protocols, because they certainly work. They certainly do a good job, and they certainly have a reason for what they're doing. But what we want to talk about in this is really just kind of exposing everyone that might be searching this out. Whether they see us or not, whether they come to us or not, is not a big deal. You don't have to be sold on the Done in One way. Just understanding sort of the reasoning behind how we got to this point, et cetera, is where I'm excited to kind of go through this. And, when you look at the list, we've already kind of charted out what these first 52 episodes look like, right? And at first you hear that and you go, 52 episodes? There's no way there's enough to talk about for 52. There's more, right? Yeah. There's going to be plenty to talk about and different little niches, and be able to do it in a way that a person can sort of self-study if they want to, right? Obviously it'll come through our filter, but self-study the who, why, what, where, and what ifs. And I think that's going to be really fun to kind of go through and kind of uncover it step by step.
Yeah, and through this podcast, we're going to have countless patients on that are going to tell their side of the story. And I'm sure when you first kind of get introduced to the idea of full arch or all on X, you're thinking initially, well, I can't have all my teeth removed. My teeth are fine. And I can understand how you can kind of come up to that idea. But once you can hear a couple other stories, relate to people, understand how they were able to find Done in One and what their journey through the entire process is, hopefully you can relate to them and kind of find some solace in it and realize, okay, this isn't so big, bad, and scary. These are cool people treating cool patients and offering a really incredible product.
And this is kind of to tag on to that. When everyone knows I play a lot of golf, right? And I meet a lot of different people, and I play in different tournaments, and I try to be social and meet people, not for recruiting or anything, but just being friendly. Right. And what always blows my mind is this last weekend I played as well. There were 3 or 4 people that asked me what I do, and by the time I kind of give them the little 3-minute elevator pitch, I take people's teeth out, I put the implants in, and then we put new teeth in. 0, and I swear to you this is true, 0 of anyone that I've ever played golf with.
Have ever heard of it?
Have ever heard of it.
Isn't that wild?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Maybe 2 or 3 have said, oh, I've heard of that place, Clear Choice, the big, the other guys. I've heard of it, right? Maybe 2 or 3. And we're talking about a lot of people per year. And so that always blows my mind, because the big guys are spending way more than we do. We spend $1 million a year on advertising, and I've yet to come across randomly in social circles and at CVS, et cetera, like anyone that even knows anything about it. So to kind of have something to kind of point to and say, this is what it's about. Again, it's not for everybody, right? Like, the hope is that you brush your teeth and everything is fine and you don't get into accidents and you don't have problems with them. This is for people that are kind of at the end of their rope and they don't know what to do and are looking for a solution that can give them their confidence back, right? Sure. That's what 100% what this whole thing is for, is being healthy and being able to eat and confidence.
Yeah.
Getting that smile, being able to show the teeth in Christmas pictures. Like, how many 30-year-olds have we done, 35, 40-year-olds that maybe were in a traumatic car accident, lost 2 or 3 of their front teeth, and haven't smiled in any of their pictures for years? Their significant other comes with them, and they're just completely changed person. It's a really awesome little niche.
Yeah,
and you see the most of that.
I see it every day, and I think a lot of people think, especially friends, I will say I had no idea what full arch was before I started working here, so I'm one of them. But a lot of people, assume, oh, you have to be older, you have to be XYZ.
That's a big misconception.
To think they need this. And a lot of our patients say, like, I feel so comfortable, I feel better, I see that you help other patients my age. So just having that safe space and an option for patients, like, you don't only have to have a denture. There's other things out there. So that's a big thing, I think.
Yeah, I think, like you said, Nick, the idea of removing your teeth is, beyond a lot of, it's a big decision. It's scary. I don't think anybody wants that.
No.
But for some people, it's even scarier to not take them out. I mean, a lot of our patients are to the point where their teeth are affecting their health.
Yeah.
And not only their overall quality of life, but their actual health. And we hear horror stories of abscesses making their way to the brain and people having these bad infections. And, at some point it just makes sense, much more sense, to have them all removed. And this is what I feel like is the best replacement for your natural teeth.
Yeah. So if you take 0 people that I've met on the golf course that know what we're talking about, the exact opposite is true if you're talking about stories of bad extractions or painful teeth or big, massive dental problems, right? Mm-hmm. Every single person knows a story from somebody. Yeah, it's bizarre. And so everybody that comes to our office, everyone that we see, generally doesn't have a good picture of dentistry, or they're scared or whatnot. And so getting them over that hump is very important, because then we can show them sort of it's a downhill slide after that, for sure.
And I see it if a patient comes in, even a virtual consult, in-person consult, I see a wall built up for good reason. They've had a lot of trauma, but after our consult, after meeting Dr. Noorthoek or our other restorative dentists, I see it come down. So I think we create a judgment-free zone. We don't, make them feel bad. I've been made feel bad at my own dentist, so I get it. It's not a good feeling. It's very vulnerable. So I think we break that wall down really quick, and that's the whole goal. It's a lot,
Yeah, break it down and make it smooth.
Yeah, I think there's also like a big movement this day and age, like on social media, of like embracing this, right? So it used to be kind of more of a taboo thing and something you couldn't imagine, but now you have people that are like, I lost all my teeth for whatever reason, and I'm not going to hide it. I'm okay with it. I'm proud of it. And I think that's good for everybody. It's not this thing that nobody talks about, or this thing that you push off until you're dying because you refuse to remove your teeth. Like, there's a better alternative out there. So yeah, I think we're in a good spot for this right now.
Yeah. So we're kind of almost out of time, but real quick, I do want to go into, like, Nick, give your story real quick. Like, how many hats have you worn? Where are they? Where are they hidden?
Where are they now?
How many hours?
I didn't bring any hats today. I guess I should have brought my podcast hat, but I started with Dr. Noorthoek in 2018, graduated from Florida Atlantic here in Boca Raton. Started, yes, go Owls, same with Lilia. Started with Dr. Noorthoek kind of as his salesperson, going out and talking to different dentists, trying to get them educated on the benefits of having a protocol for full arch and full arch therapy, and how they can help their patients. Through the years, this kind of has divulged into being Dr. Noorthoek's assistant during surgery, being his assistant during conversion dentures, making sure patients were educated through the entire process. And then once Dr. Noorthoek took full control of the brand, brought it down to Boca Raton in 2020, we set up shop and we established a lab.
Not to interrupt, but what year, I forgot myself, like what year did you start working with Dun & One with me?
2018.
2018. Okay.
September of 2018, September 4th. Not that I remember.
There you go.
Bingo.
The date. That's very
Oh, yeah. So, anyways, we, established a lab, and now we have, a full team, a team that shows up at 5 a.m., a team that works the day shift, a team that works overnight, that gets in at 8 p.m. and works till about 4 a.m. So we've totally built out our lab, and it's been beautiful to watch that grow. We've been able to establish a dental office that Dr. Noorthoek started off as a sole practitioner of. Then we expanded to the Meisner location. We've been able to bring on a general dentist that is absolutely incredible. We've also then been able to purchase an office in Tampa, get that team to start offering the Dun & Warren procedure, get them to come over to Boca, train them up, and now they're treating patients over there as well. So it's been an absolutely incredible ride, and I couldn't be more proud to be a member of Dun & Warren. And quick anecdote story is yesterday, and I'm sure my boss doesn't know this, but I play in a Tuesday night golf league that starts at 5, so it's questionable about the hours. But I got to the course again a little early before 5. But I sat at the little local pub there, and two of the guys I sat next to wasn't intentional. Didn't tell them I was showing up. They both were Dun & Warren patients. Wow. One of them was chewing on a thing of bar peanuts, which is against the rules. But incredible to see them living their life. And one of them turned to me and I think talked my ear off, almost missed our tea time, because he was telling me about how this has impacted him and he couldn't be happier. He brought his wife to come see us. And, outside of those two individuals, Dr. Noorthoek has treated countless family members of mine, friends of mine. I would recommend this procedure to anyone that's in need of it. And I couldn't be more proud to be a part of the Dun & Warren team, and continuing to build on the DIO brand is something I'm super excited to see how it goes.
Hear, hear.
And Lils, when did you start, and what did you start with? Meaning, what is the weirdest job we've had you do, or the crappiest job we've had you start with?
I am not like Nick. I don't even remember what I ate for lunch today. So I think I started in 20.
We don't eat lunch. What do you?
Yeah. I don't remember what I had for breakfast. I think we started in 23? 22, end of 22. I was still...
Not end of. It was like April, May.
Was it? See,
it was before you graduated.
I don't know anything. All I know for a fact was I was still at FAU, so Florida Atlantic University, go Owls. And I was graduating with a degree in social work. Had, again, no background in dentistry, no idea what full arch was, and needed a part-time job as I was in school and doing an internship there. So my first job with Dun & Warren was scanning all of our hard patient files and making them digital.
Thousands and thousands of patient files.
I would come in at 5 p.m. when everybody was kind of done with the day, and I'd stay, a few hours. I'd come in on a Friday, and I was just grateful for a job, grateful that Dr. Noorthoek allowed me to have this weird time slots. But I really started to learn about Dun & Warren sitting there. And I thought the coolest thing about the team was here's a doctor and a team that's, would sit with me. I think it would be until like 6 p.m. and just talk to me, just have conversation as I'm scanning. They could go home if they wanted to, but made, conversation. And I thought they were all so cool. And
it was because I felt bad for you. I don't feel like any human should have to sit and scan thousands of records.
But I also was overhearing things. So I was overhearing consults and Nick and Dr. Noorthoek and the appointments and Robert and the whole team. And I don't even know. I mean, that's, I guess, that you guys know the story, but then I was offered a position as a treatment coordinator. So I was, more than happy.
You more or less just kind of evolved into it. Like, just kind of just took it. Yeah. Not that,
I think I had one day of training. We
didn't want it to be that way, but it just kind of took it.
Yeah, you hit the ground running.
I hit the ground running because I was, I was hearing such good things while I was scanning documents. And, Dr. Noorthoek, Nick, Robert, all have been great, team members, and it made it even easier. And, some days starting out were harder than others, but I always had you guys to fall on. So it's just evolved. Now
and over the last 3 years that you've been with us, we have only 5-star reviews on Google, and I'm pretty sure 98 to 99% of those all include your name in them, and they all talk, sing your praises about how compassionate you are, how educated you are through the entire process. So, kudos to you for totally embracing this.
I love our patients. Everyone knows I probably know every little thing about their lives, and I love that. I love that rapport with them. And yeah, just now I'm treatment coordinator in Meisner office. I help oversee Tampa's office, and excited to keep growing. But yeah, love the patient interaction and staff and team, of course, make it easy. So yeah.
Yeah, like the theme here is, when we get to Odom here in a second, the theme here is that just treating, not only do we try to treat patients like normal humans and friends that have backgrounds and stories, like we've always tried to hire employees that are humans, right? We didn't care that she didn't know, the first thing about dental sales or really sales in general, right? But if you can connect with a patient, it's a whole lot easier to do that than it is to say, follow the 6 G's of selling or whatever it is. And so we don't do all that fancy stuff and kind of talk down and give training seminars, not because we're not capable of it, but in the end of the day, success comes down to connecting with people. And, Nick and Lilia, you guys work together a lot, and you have to be able to connect with people and understand where each one's coming from to have a good working relationship. And so the theme of our staff is really no dental background, right? And that's maybe sounds scary, but it's not. It makes us sort of lethal because
it's only scary if you don't have a dental background.
Yeah. And all the dentists we hire have dental background. Just putting that out there.
Exactly.
Right. Anyone touching the teeth has a dental background. But besides that, we've always kind of had that secret weapon of working with people and finding the passion more than the upfront knowledge, right? Because the passion surpasses anybody. It ends up, they build the knowledge surpassing what you could hire off the street. So with that, when I met Odom, he was working, we'll just fast forward a year, but you were working fish market, to the point of not having dental background, but, you uprooted your whole family for this. And I forget, when did you start working? It's been a while. It wasn't 2020.
It was 2019.
2019.
And I'll always remember that because it was right before the COVID lockdowns happened. But we met a year before that.
Yeah. I skipped through that part. We'll get into that part later.
Yeah. I started in 2019. My wife and son and I moved down here to South Florida from Destin, Florida, up in the Panhandle. And then COVID happened and things went sideways and we didn't know, what was going to happen, but we ended up pulling through that and making the best out of it. Like Nick, I've worn a few hats, started off kind of on the phones, answering patient questions, got a good bit of training, but there's only so much training before you really have to just like dive in and get hands-on and you start hearing questions that no one's asked before. And then you go look that question up, repeat, rinse, repeat over and over. And you get pretty educated, not only about the process and the dental side of it, but just the people side of it. And the questions people have, the answers they're looking for, the needs of our patients. So I feel like I got a really good grasp on that side of things. And, it's always a blessing to know that I came from a place where I worked, manual labor for 21 years. I got offered this opportunity to actually use my brain a little bit. And that's really worked out. So very proud to be part of the team. Glad to be here to support everybody. And, like I said before, I think this podcast could be a really good educational tool for people like us that don't have a dental background and want to get honest, transparent scope of kind of what goes on behind the
future
scenes.
Odoms for our competitors. We're actively training right now.
All right. It worked. Whatever works.
For a while, Odom and Nick, you guys kind of shared the duties, and that was a little bit overwhelming for me because it was kind of like you both did the same, not the same thing, but I didn't know who to talk to about, hiring XYZ, and so it was kind of fun to watch in the last 2-3 years really watching it kind of divide, and now Nick was able to kind of find his sweet space and his stride, and you were able to find your stride as well. And it's just kind of fun to like have watched that sort of separate, because now you both have a background and a history with each other where you understand where he's coming from, you understand where he's coming from. So
Yeah.
it's been a wild ride for sure. And so, you know, we're going to continue to like unpackage this. We're going to unpackage sort of what is full arch, and, you know, like we said, bring in the patients, bring in the people, the experts, etc. If you have questions, I mean, I think we've talked about, you know, submitting questions, Facebook group. You probably have a better.
Yeah, we're all over social media at Get Done in One. We encourage you, send in questions. You know, I see on Facebook groups or in our Facebook page, like there's so many good questions every day, which again, I always go back to like dentistry is kind of a mystery to most people. But we're here to solve that mystery. We want to educate everyone who has a question. So please send in your questions. Hit us up on any social medias, hit up the website, give us a call. We're here for whatever you need.
Yeah. This was just kind of to lay the groundwork. I may send one of you guys in to just, you know, if we bring in a lab person, may just be you and that lab person or whatnot. So just wanted to kind of have the original intro to kind of lay out what the intention is and what we're doing here and who's going to be on here and there. And so, you know, I'm really looking forward to this project. We've talked about it for a long time, but to actually like get it to a point where we're executing, it's very exciting, you know, to be able to get that information out and cover things. So format will probably change here and there at a length of time, etc. But we'll be here and discussing through these things every step of the way. So I'll let you do your like, subscribe plug.
Yeah,
for a
like,
second there.
subscribe, download on wherever you get your podcasts from.
You got to do the point.
Yeah.
Right here.
Yeah.
And
Click the button below.
click the button below. And yeah, let us know if you have any topics you want us to cover. Again, any of your questions, you know, we're here to help educate in any and all forms. So don't be shy. Reach out to us. Let's help educate the public, and we'll be back with plenty more.
Yeah. Appreciate your time.
Bye.
See ya.
Cut scene.